Good morning, everyone. And I am Sardar, your moderator for this exciting and insightful session. And today we are going to explore the details of getting ready for the trade show. And we have an excellent speaker, Tom Perkowski, here to share his insights and experiences with us. Before we hear from Tom, I want to make this session interactive. So please keep your questions coming in the chat. Donna, my colleague, will read them for us. But at the end of Tom's presentation, also we will have some dedicated time for your Q&A session. And I know that Tom has prepared some slides for us. And now over to you, Tom.
Great, thanks, Sardar. Let me share my screen, and then you can just let me know that you guys can see it okay.
Yep.
Got it?
Yep.
All right, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Tom Perkowski. I'm the founding principal of ApexView, and I'm excited to share a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is getting ready for a trade show and making it as effective as possible. Today, we're going to talk about the phases of getting ready for a show, both overall your show plan for the year, as well as what to do pre-show, at the show, and post-show. And then I'll leave you with some takeaway tips. The focus of this presentation is going to be on the planning and the execution. It's probably one chapter of many in terms of the trade show guidebook. Happy to discuss specific shows or booth design or logistics in the Q&A as you have questions on any of that. And I know a few of you might be going to the SpaceCom show or Sea and Space coming up, and I've been to Sea and Space, not SpaceCom yet, but happy to answer any questions specifically about them. So a little bit about me. As I mentioned, founding principal of ApexView. I'm a sole proprietorship consulting firm. I provide advisory services to specifically A&D companies with new and novel technology. So a lot of those are startups or maybe some larger firms that are introducing some new product to the market. And with helping with government programs, so I understand a lot of the government shows, go to market where this trade show readiness piece really falls in, business development. And then, how did I get here? I have my own startup for 6 years, so I have the lumps. I understand the challenges in terms of that. I understand the stress and the desperation, and sometimes, but kind of a wide range of background across hardware, software, and services for both large and small companies. Some of the big guys I've worked with are on the screen. Also a mentor in Starburst is an aerospace and defense accelerator, and StartBlue, which is a maritime accelerator currently, along with working a lot with students at SDSU here in San Diego and Penn State. To the right is my current and past customers, and I will put in the chat my contact information right now. Drop that in there, and feel free to link with me on LinkedIn, and you'll get to see, especially now the trade show season is starting, my beautiful face doing videos from all over the place. So why are we talking about this today? It's because trade shows cost a lot of money, whether you're exhibiting or whether you're just walking or going to speak. The time, both in traveling there as well as the time kind of away from developing your technology, is costly. However, you can get more done in 1 to 3 days in a trade show than you can in a month or more from your office. And especially for startups, being at the show really cements you as sort of a player in the industry. Hey, you're where everybody in our industry is this week. It says you're a player. So, but having a plan to execute is going to help in 2 things. One, managing the chaos of the show. For some of these big shows, if you haven't been there before, I remember the first time I walked into AUSA, I was just, my eyes lit up. I never saw, tank tow trucks, for example. There's just an amazing array of really cool stuff. But having the plan helps you focus on working your plan, getting getting the things done you want to get done at the show, which goes back to driving your return on investment, making that show successful. The other bonus with trade shows, especially if you're kind of early in your product cycle, is practicing your tagline, your elevator pitch over and over again and seeing how it lands. You might do it 2 or 3 times and it doesn't go anywhere. I've actually have had different versions throughout the day at a show to see what makes more sense to my target audience, and have come out of shows with a much better pitch than I went in with. So let's talk about the strategy planning piece and kind of the 3 ways that you can participate in a show: walking, speaking, and exhibiting. So you should be looking at the shows you're going to, preferably the fall the year before, to start planning out your schedule. There's 2 types of shows. There's your big general shows, and probably Sea, Air, and Space and Spacecom shows fall into those big shows. And there's more smaller specific shows that are targeted towards a specific technology area or a platform. Which one you go to is kind of really depends upon what you want to get out of it. And some questions to ask are, what shows does your customer attend? So if it's a government customer, do you know kind of what shows they're attending? And you can ask them. Or, LinkedIn is a great source if people are saying, hey, I'm at the show, or the command is saying we're at the show. Also, what shows are in your customer's backyard? For example, here in San Diego, we have FCO West coming up next month, and the big Navy command NavWar is here. So they're going to have a big presence at the show. So if you're looking at NavWar, FCO West is really a show you should be looking at. Walk, speak versus exhibit. Exhibiting, definitely raises the cost of the show. And it really is best when you have a thing to show. You might be at a point in your product lifecycle where you don't have a thing to show just yet. And that's where walking might be the best thing to learn what the customer wants, start building that funnel. So when you're ready to sell it, you already have your funnel built. Another difference is if you're exhibiting versus walking is the customer the attendee versus is the customer the exhibitor. I have certain clients where, we're looking at the original equipment manufacturers as our potential customers. So we're actually walking up to booths and saying, hey, is such and such a person here that we can talk to? If not, who is, or is that the right person? We're validating our funnel. So that's some of the differences between maybe, to look at exhibiting or walking. Now, speaking or being on panels is great because even if you're early in the cycle, you can start establishing yourself as the subject matter expert in that particular area. Now, one note, and you guys may know this, but make sure you're following the show, and it can be annoying because you get lots of email, but abstract deadlines, I've noticed, are getting further and further out, to be 6 to 9 months before the show. So if you want to speak, make sure you're following the abstract deadlines and getting your abstracts in on time so you can be eligible to speak. If it's not a show where there is abstracts, building a relationship with whoever is managing the speakers is also key there. So let's talk about, okay, you picked your show. So let's, Spacecom, Sierra, and Space, we're going there. We're going to start a pre-show prep. I like to do this as early as possible, like a month or so out. You don't want to do it 6 months out because the list of speakers or the exhibitors isn't quite established yet. But a month or so out is perfect. And you want to start, okay, who's going to be there? What companies are going to be there? What events do I want to go to? So a lot of us have the government as our potential client, and we're small businesses. Is the small business office doing a program? For example, at AUSA, the small business office ran a phenomenal event during the conference. It was a whole day of content, and it was extremely valuable because we were going through all the different Army innovation programs and even talking about some new ones. Is there going to be a matchmaking session? Again, at this AUSA show, following day, there was matchmaking, but you needed to sign up really like when it first came out because those appointments went extremely quickly. So be following the show, know when matchmaking is coming, and sign up ASAP. So who in your network is going to the show? This is where following the hashtag on LinkedIn, so people will start talking about it, and you can know who of your prospects or the companies that you might be interested in are going to be there. And this is where we also start to build our show plan, start taking all this information in, and I'll show you on the next slide how we build our show plan in a way that's worked for me and that I use with some of my clients. Scheduling meetings. I like using a tool such as Calendly and including the link in my email when I'm sending out my pre-show emails or linking with somebody on LinkedIn and exchanging messages. You probably, as small businesses, it's going to take time before this builds up, but it's kind of a nice tool to have. So a couple tips on setting it up properly. Make sure you lock the time zone into the show time zone, and make sure you configure show dates and hours. I get these a lot. Hey, schedule an appointment with us, and it's their regular Calendly or their regular Microsoft Outlook calendar. There's dates from last year to next year. It's not professional. One of the other tips is when you're doing it, I get rid of what this meeting is about. I put in their cell phone because it's a very valuable piece of information to have, and ask for their booth number if they have a booth. And I put in, as you can see here on the left, we can meet at their booth, or we can figure out a place to meet in the show hall. So that's some tips there. And then pre-show, start prepping for post-show. Get some time on the calendar. If you've got a team, schedule that debrief now, so you've got that in the calendar. Also block time on your calendar, or whoever's doing follow-up, have them block time on their calendar to get follow-up done. If it's not in our calendar, things are going to start filling up our calendars, and we all know how that is. The other thing to do is write your follow-up email before the show. You're going to want to customize your emails that you're sending out to everybody, but there are some basic things you can kind of put in there. Great to see you at the show. We talked about, maybe put a ... and here's the follow-up. Another tip is to make sure you have a folder with all your literature PDFs, so you can just go to one folder, click it, and boom, you're attaching the PDFs to the email. And I just saw a nice tip that Google Calendar also has a function like this. Whatever your calendaring option of choice is, use the tools to make sure that you're getting it to be around that show only. All right, so the show plan. This is what I use as my atlas at the show. And it's kind of what I've used to be successful in working trade shows, both as an exhibitor and when walking at shows. So there's two examples on the right, and the top example is sort of the kind of the big piece where it takes the most work, and I use this to do my pre-show planning and reaching out to folks. On the bottom, for the big shows, I like having a list of the not every exhibitor, but the exhibitors who are important to me, and I can then have that by booth number and easily walk through the show and know who I want to hit on any given aisle that I might be in. The other thing I like to do is I like to color code the most important people I want to see at the show. You might get into shows where you're having, in the best case there, you're having, hour-long meetings, or it's taking you 15 minutes to get from meeting to meeting. The day goes by pretty quickly. You want to make sure that you're focusing on your most important contacts at the show, and I just like to color code them. So when you're prepping the show plan, I like to make sure that I have a CRM system, but I like to make sure as much information as possible is in this, because it's one reference. I'm not not on my phone jumping around to different things. So, people's names. And you'll notice I have a check mark if they've responded to me and they said they're going to be there, or if they said they're not going to be there, I know they're not going to be there. Their phone numbers, and then a note about, hey, did they just make a recent announcement? Or if I don't know the company that well, just a little note to myself what they do and why they're on my list to be a hot prospect. Because again, when you're at the show, it's a very exciting environment. I tend to forget things. It's just nice to have that quick and easy reference. So one of my tips here is to print out the show plan and the schedule in advance and have it with you. The reason why, and for those of you going to see her in space, it's in the National Harbor, the Gaylord National Harbor. The cell service is just terrible. Unless you have the Wi-Fi package, you are not getting internet in the hall. You've got to go outside or up to the lobby to get internet. So you need to have a backup plan. The backup plan could make sure you have it downloaded to your phone if you really want to use your phone or your tablet to do these things. But I find it's nice to have that backup plan as a hard copy. And sometimes it's easier to pull out a pen and write some things down on the show plan for your notes, for your follow-up notes. If you can print it at home, or if on site, ask the front desk. Even in small hotels, everybody has a printer. Just email them the PDF. Or at most of the big shows halls, there's always a Kinko's. All right, social media. A lot of us have social media accounts, and maybe we're not doing a lot on social media right now, but the trade show gives us an opportunity to sort of ramp or amp up our social media. And if you're exhibiting, a month out, start letting people know you're going to be there. This is sort of on the right-hand side at the top, an example of what we used to do for some of the trade shows when I was at EagleCap. Hey, we're at the big show and we're going to be at booth number X. If you've got your Google, your Calendly link, or your Microsoft link to schedule, hey, you can put that in there. Hey, schedule a meeting with us. Boom, click here. Maybe boom, you've got a new product announcement coming out, so there's a product sneak peek, or you've got a really cool giveaway. At EagleCap, we were known for Legos, so we would always kind of highlight our Lego giveaway sort of as a teaser to make it fun. And then if you're attending, you don't really have to go a month out, but about a week before or so, hey, let everybody know I'll be at the show. And then, a couple days before the show, hey, I'll be there. A lot of things pop up in our feed. So it's kind of good to have kind of some multiple impressions in that feed. And then when I'm at the show, I like to, let people know, hey, I'm here. And one of the ways that makes it easy to do that is you take a picture and do a quick edit of it, make sure it looks good, and then boom, you have a template either in Microsoft Notes, your Google Notes, whatever, and you already have all your hashtags in there, and even maybe something you might want to say. So that's already in there. So you just copy and paste it on your phone and then post it live from the show. I find these things, especially like if you're at the keynote, you take a picture of the keynote speaker, you post it. These are things that tend to get a lot of interest and engagement from folks who may know about the show but weren't able to be there. So it's kind of it gets some notice and maybe starts building up your LinkedIn followers. So a note on trade show presence. A lot of us might have worked for big companies or even established companies, and we've gone to shows before, and we've got a steady stream of traffic. Well, they've been at these shows and they've had marketing behind them. As new companies, we don't have that presence in the marketplace, and presence really requires a multi-year investment. And I say this just because of two things. One is a lot of firms have, especially aerospace, have gone in, say, NBAA, the big business aviation trade show. They've set up that 20 by 20 or 40 by 40 booth with all that investor money, and then boom, they flame out. So people kind of know that, you need to establish some trust and some traction in the industry before they're going to show you a lot of interest. So here's how it's probably going to go. And this is built upon experience, personal experience, and seeing how my clients have also seen this go for them. Year one, you're probably going to be a little disappointed. People might know you, but they don't know your company. It's like, oh, what's this, Spacely Sprocket company you're working for? Oh, that's the startup I started. Oh, great. I've got a meeting. Boom. Year two, people are going to recognize you. Hey, weren't you here last year? I think I saw you, or I saw something on your LinkedIn that you were going to be here. And then year three is when you're going to start probably get more traction. People are going to remember you. They're going to even start seeking you out. Saying, hey, can we meet for breakfast, or do you have time for a meeting, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of, we can help year one by being prepared, but even if we're prepared, it's still not going to be as good as year two or year three. So just hang in there. Just like everything with your startup, it takes time.
Yeah, apologies for the interruption, Tom. I just want to make a comment over here. I think it's also important to pick up the right trade show to see that, attraction from the industry. I mean, if you're not in the right trade show, even if you attend like 3, 4, 5 years, you might not see the attraction that you're seeking.
Exactly. And that's where even some of the smaller shows might be a little bit better than the larger shows, because they're also a little bit more intimate. You might have some time, some more time to speak to people. And I have a note on that here on the next slide. So at the show, if you're not exhausted after a trade show, you didn't hustle enough. You should definitely you're going to need to sleep the entire weekend after the trade show if you've done it well. But a good trade show requires hustle, and it requires patience, and it requires professionalism. The reason it requires patience is you're going to get into a booth, you're going to ask for a person, and especially with the big folks, that person may not be there, or they're trying to find them. You have to kind of have that patience to, all right, they're not here, I got to come back. It just requires some patience. And then professionalism. As I mentioned, hey, I've been a startup. I know sometimes, hey, we need to get some sales, or we need to get some traction going. But you gotta maintain professional. I've seen some very unprofessional things happen at trade shows, and I'm glad I've never been that person. But if somebody says, hey, we're not interested, you got to respect that and move on to the next one, because that's the great thing about a trade show. There's going to be a next one, and you're going to, in the course of that day or 2 days or 3 days you're there, someone is going to start getting interested in what you're doing, and you're going to have some good conversations. So work that show plan. It's your atlas. Don't get distracted. Although you are going to probably see some things, either companies or technologies that are of interest. And then you're going to kind of, again, make notes on your plan, so you add them in for next year when you're back. If you're exhibiting, assign somebody to the booth. You've got to get out there and work the show. Yes, hopefully you've established a few meetings in your booth, but to get more, you kind of get out there even early before the show kicks off, and get people in their booths and say, hey, what's your day look like? Can we find some time to meet either here or at my booth? Try to avoid the desk until you know the desk people. And what I mean is that a lot of the larger companies, they'll have the welcome desk. My kind of tip is I just mosey into the booth, and especially if I know who I want to talk to, because I've done that research in advance, because I have my show plan. Ask around, hey, is such and such a person who's here? Oh, maybe that person doesn't know that person. They'll say, hey, go check at the desk. I don't know, but maybe they do, and can and kind of steer you to them. If you do go to the desk, say, hey, if you're asking for someone specific, it's better than saying, hey, is there somebody here who deals with name your specific technology in your company. It's better to say, hey, is Bob Jones here? I've been contacting him about our technology on this. Again, it adds in that professionalism. You kind of know specifically what you're asking for. When you're at the show and you're getting leads, have a business card, so you can hand out your business cards. The thing I find about business cards, I know that the online cards are very popular, but when you hand somebody a business card, we're kind of like mice with the with the getting the food. People just automatically hand you one back, and having that contact information is key. I have my business card both. I have a QR code. I have it on my phone as a QR code if somebody wants to scan it. But I also always have a business card with me. And then if you are scanning cards, one thing I would recommend doing is taking a picture of it with your phone. And the reason I say that is that if you're sending it off for somebody to do your data entry after the show, you know who it was, and it's geotagged at the location. If you're exhibiting, this is a kind of a 4-man CRM, but bring a notebook and stapler and just staple the business card from the company in the notebook, and then write your notes down. If you're having a good show, you think that, oh, I met this great guy or great company at 9 o'clock in the morning. By 5 o'clock, you're going to probably have forgotten what you talked about. So it's really important to write those notes down. And then if it's a hot lead, get them the information ASAP, like that night or even during the day after some downtime, and then circle back with them saying, hey, we talked about this. I got you the information. I know you haven't had time to look at it, but hey, I just want to let you know I sent it, and let's try to find a time next week to talk about that. And even gives you an opportunity to potentially even set up an appointment. So some more at show tips. Read the show news. That's coming out before and during the show. One, it gives you good talking points with your prospect. If your prospect just made a big announcement about something, congratulate them. It helps you to, again, build that rapport with them. And it also helps you know what your competition's saying. Have they made an announcement that is something that you need to know about? If you're not kind of keeping up with the show news, you're not seeing that, and you might get surprised by something. For shows that have keynotes, you don't have to stay necessarily for the whole thing, but mull around early in that morning. You're going to see people, and that gives you a chance to start filling up that calendar, that schedule. It's like, hey, I sent you an email. I know you're probably busy before the show. Any chance we can set up a time either today or tomorrow? You've got that opportunity to talk to them. So this is the conversation we're just having about small shows versus big shows. There's also long conversations versus short. This is a good judgment call. It's an old saying that a bird in hand is better than two in the bush. I mean, and then this is also why I say, let's make sure that we have our most important companies or contacts highlighted on our show plan, because if we get into a long conversation with somebody and it's a good productive conversation, we may need to make a judgment call of, do I push a meeting, or do I'm not going to get to something because I've had that call, or I've had that conversation. So this is where the planning comes in, is sort of knowing exactly what we want to hit. So we know that if we're in a long conversation, we don't necessarily have to cut it short. We can continue to have it and get to where we want to go with that conversation, rather than worrying about missing other things. I like, again, doing a daily social media post. This is one from, I think, AUVSI. It's again, it's a little bit of humble bragging. You're at that big event. It's establishing you as a player in the market with that recognition. And, again, make this easy by having all your hashtags already set up in advance. So you're not having to be on your phone and okay, what hashtags am I using for AUVSI Exponential? So, and then lastly, wear your logo shirt and your name badge, and look like you belong. And I'm going to show you a picture of a name badge in a couple of minutes, but You can pick up a name badge from Staples or Office Depot for $20, but I suggest wearing it up on your upper lapel because you're going to look like you belong at the trade show. All the big people from the big companies are wearing their name badge. And it also keeps people coming to look down at your midsection to figure out who your name is. It's always up there, easy for them to see. All right. After the show, you've had a good show. You've gotten a good weekend of rest because you were hustling all week at the show. Get your cards into your CRM system, or at a minimum, a spreadsheet for tracking. This is a little bit off topic, but a little bit on topic as well. After being a little bit on the fence about when to implement a CRM system into your organization, especially since a lot of them are, if you're a band of one, it's free. I would say start putting data into our CRM system sooner rather than later. And the reason why is if you're going to a few trade shows this year and you're starting to develop contacts, it becomes much harder to do that data import this time next year than it is to just bite the bullet and do it and start it now. One of the things you want, and then once you have either your spreadsheet or your CRM system, make sure you're tagging contacts that you're meeting at these shows, so next year when you show up at Sierra and Space that Jane Jones was there and she was a good contact. That's somebody that I'm going to want to set up a meeting with next year to make sure I'm continuing that conversation. As you do this year after year, your planning will get a little easier. So I have follow up in bold here. You would be surprised how many people never follow up after a trade show. They have a good conversation. They're supposed to reach out to me. They just never do. Set yourself apart by just following up, sending a follow-up email with the information that you said you would send them goes a long way. Enough said on that. One of the things we used to do at EagleCap is, and this is before COVID, it's a little harder in the world of virtual office, but we used to do a little thank you postcard to kind of make ourselves stand out. And an example of one is on the right-hand side. But you can do something similar with your social media post, either, some pictures from around the show or a little graphic like this that, hey, it was great to see you at this was the Regional Aircraft Association we were at. And then lastly, write a report, even if you are a band of one. And the reason I say that is you're going to forget things. I go back to my post-show reports all the time to look things up. It's just all those notes you wrote, just quickly get them into a report by company or by contact, so you have them in one place that you can go back to. I knew this happened at SpaceCom, but I just don't remember the specifics. It's there in a Word document or a Google Doc, and you can reference it. So some tips as takeaways that I've learned over the years. Thin Sharpies are the pen to have. The reason why is everybody's business cards now are all coded. It's hard to write on them to take your notes with a regular pen. So bring some thin Sharpies and you'll be able to write on them and they won't smear away. That show plan is your atlas. Have a hard copy or make sure that those files are downloaded to your phone, because remember, cell coverage in these trade show halls are terrible. Make a daily photo of all those business cards that you collected. One, they're going to be geotagged where you are. They become sort of a poor person's CRM system, because you can look and say, oh, I was in DC. Let me go in my little map and find DC and find all the pictures I took in DC. Oh yeah, those are my business cards. And then if you've got that that book, take a picture per page. And then if you're working with, using one of the Fiverr systems and having people do your data entry, you already have the pictures. You can email them the pictures and say, hey, here's my data entry I need. Again, that name badge, upper right-hand side, when you're shaking hands with somebody, they can see your name. You can see their name. They don't have to look down at your stomach. And then if you're doing international shows, we learned that the Apex accelerators is a little bit dependent upon state, but they have their international trade program. So you might be able to get some money or doing international shows. And there's a link for your Apex Accelerator. And each state has their own specific potentially shows they do, but it might be worth looking into if you want to move out to an international market. So how to be successful at a trade show? There's 3 simple steps. One, just you got to plan. Where you're gonna go and why you're gonna go there. Second, execute. Just hustle when you're at the show, but be patient. And then lastly, do that follow up. Make it timely and target it. Don't do any email blast. You've got a note on that card specifically to the thing you talked about. Give them the information that they asked for and that you promised to send. And lastly, again, it's gonna be stressful being a startup, running out of money, but always be professional and respect the other person. Your stuff is not important to them as it is to you, and you've got to respect that. So with that, happy to take questions. And this is my contact information. LinkedIn's on the left, and to scan that, and my V card is on the left as well.
Thank you so much, Tom, for sharing those insightful and practical slides with us. Before getting into questions, I just want to echo some of the things that you have said, like before and after the trade shows are super important to get the most out of the trade shows. I have witnessed several times that companies are focusing on the booth design or branded giveaways, but they kind of forget to getting ready or getting prepared for the actual the things that they have to do before the trade show.
Yep.
And another thing that I'd like to point out is, like, even if you're not selling, you can still make the most out of the trade shows. I think this is also a great opportunity to do like customer discovery.
Yep.
But I just wanted to remind everyone here that customer discovery is different than selling. So you have to kind of have a storytelling accordingly. You have to identify your target audience and identify what you're trying to do, which means, again, like a lot of preparation before the trade show. Another thing, thanks for pointing out, like after the trade shows, all companies, especially if they are early stage startups, they have limited resources, which means that they do have like limited bandwidth. And right after the trade show, they just go back to their day-to-day routine, and we kind of forget or don't do the follow-up after the trade show. So it's also super important to kind of follow up with all the contacts that you have developed, or all potential partners, potential customers, or whoever you have talked or contacted during the trade show. So it's also super important.
Yep.
So,
and at a minimum, it helps you build your LinkedIn network, right? You can send them a LinkedIn request saying, hey, we met at Sierra in Space or SpaceCom. Great to meet you. Looking forward to running future shows. And that helps you kind of build up that network as well. Especially if you're saying, you're not quite into the selling aspect yet, but you're in that customer discovery phase. That will help you then keep in touch with them as you get closer to having that product that you can sell, and you've got your audience built.
I do have a quick question about this. We do know that like storytelling is important in today's world. Like, what is the role of storytelling in the trade show presentations? Like, can you give some tips about the storytelling? Is it different storytelling for customer discovery or selling, or?
Yes, I think trade shows are a different environment than sort of a pitch environment. Now, if the story is really important, if you're going to be speaking at the conference, that's going to your story is going to tie into what you're showing at the show to kind of have that integrated show strategy. However, say for example at the booth, I like to start off with kind of understanding who is in front of me before I even start telling my story, to understand their role. And then I can maybe change that story based upon their role. If they're if they're a technical buyer, or if they're a financial buyer, for example, if they're in purchasing or they're on the business side versus they're on the engineering team. I like to start off the conversation understanding who I'm speaking with if I don't know who they are, and that will help me then tell the story of why we're here and what we're selling.
Mhm. Yeah. And my other question would be like related to this. You have mentioned like everyone gets a booth, and especially if it's a big trade show, there are tons of booths. Uh, how can a company differentiate like themselves and capture the attention of the potential partners and clients at these trade shows?
Well, I think it really comes down to that pre-show piece. If you expect to just show up at the show and have people be flocking to your booth, you're living in a different world than what the rest of us have lived in. You really have to be reaching out actively to folks in advance and letting them know, inviting them to stop by. And again, going back to the story, what it is you're presenting at the show. Other pieces of that strategy are, hey, is it a point where I can release a press release where I might get some free press? I might get into a newsletter and people might see that during the show and then want to come over and see my booth. Or you're putting out your social media, of course you're tagging the show. Maybe the show likes, you get a cool picture or something like that, and then they repost that. So all these things are kind of part of an integrated marketing strategy that you're working prior to the show and at the show to make sure that you're working it. Now, if your press release doesn't get picked up, know where the press office is and stop by, drop off your press releases at the press office, but know who the reporters are that cover your space in the particular trade magazines. And if they're there, introduce yourself. Now, you might not get an article this year, but as you build that relationship, you might get an article next year. And then that will help push people to your booth, and it's free advertising.
Yeah, and it's going to increase the visibility within the community that you're targeting. Yeah, thanks so much. So Donna, do we have any questions?
I don't see any open questions in the Q&A, but if anyone has any questions, you can drop in the Q&A or even drop it into the chat. But yeah, no questions so far.
So any other things that you would like to highlight, Tom, before we leave? Any other common mistakes or pitfalls that you would like to mention again? I know that we have mentioned the top 3 things, but
yeah. So again, if you're, I understand, a lot of us are small companies. It's worth bringing that extra person with you. Especially if you have an exhibit booth. So that gives you time to, if you're going to work the show for yourself, find somebody to help you. For example, one year we actually hired somebody to help us with the booth, just to stand there. They could answer basic questions, which was great, but it gave me a chance to get out there and bring people back to see our technology. So you really need to get out there to pull people in to your exhibit versus expecting them to come. To your prior question, Siddhar.
yeah.
Got it. And actually, we did get a question in the Q&A. The audience member asks, any considerations for new exhibitors, either on coordinating with the show or other tips on logistics before/after?
Okay. Yes. So one of the first thing you have to do is you have to write up your, what you do, and make sure that what you do blob in the exhibit, book or app is very targeted towards your targeted customer. Avoid using acronyms, but make sure you explain. And this gets back to the story of what you do, why you do what you do. It needs to be, a lot of them are 100 words or less. It's got to be crisp and help people understand why they need to put you on their trade show list of people they need to see. So that's one of the first things. As far as the booth design, keep it simple. You don't have to go out and buy a $10,000 booth. Just get a pop-up. Get some pop-ups, and your marketing message is probably going to change 5 times in the next 5 years as you develop the product. So they're inexpensive to change the artwork on them. So I have some of my favorite pop-ups I'm happy to share. If you want to send me an email, I'll send you the link to one of my favorite pops-ups. It's very easy to change it out at home. It's a little bit more on the upfront cost, but you can literally do it in your living room versus having to have some special tools with some of the spring-loaded ones. And you don't have to. We talked about tchotchkes and things like that. I mean, I like bringing mints as my giveaway. They're somebody stops by, picks up a mint, gives you a chance to have a conversation with them. We're startups. We don't need lots of tchotchkes. It's more important to make sure you have a good, what's your demo going to look like if you got software, or if you're bringing the technology, it's going to be a lot of effort just to get the technology there. If it's a thing, and then make sure that you all of you, and if there's multiples, I mean, practice with each other of what you're going to say, and maybe go over some some common objections, like, oh, I saw this, somebody else has this, why are you different? Just kind of work with each other and do some practice sessions beforehand so that you kind of got all that stuff down. And those are just some starter tips. There's many more. If you buy me a beer, you can, I have a lot more things that tell you about lessons learned over the years.
Good stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. And curious if folks in the audience want to connect with you in person, are there any trade shows or conferences that you'll be attending this year that are coming up?
Yes. Well, I will be at FCO West. That's here in my hometown in San Diego. That's in February. I'm also going to be at AUBSI Exponential, which is here locally in San Diego as well. And that's in, I think, May. We'll be at Aero Friedrichshafen in Friedrichshafen, Germany. If anybody is going to be there, it's a very specific show. More than likely, I'm also going to be at the Farnborough Air Show as well this year. Possibly Heli Expo up in Anaheim, TBD, and some others. But those are the ones I know for sure. And as I said, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I've gotten in the habit of trying to do some videos live from the show. So that's kind of my way of kind of sharing what's happening there on the show floor. So you'll get to see those and see where I'm at. And if you're there, send me a message or a text message and say, hey, love to connect if you can. So,
Okay.
And
yeah,
so I see Sean asked about getting a copy of the deck. Don, are you gonna?
Yeah, we will be emailing the slides and also recording of the session to all participants, all the registrants. Yeah, we will do that. I think no any other questions. So thank you very much for joining us, Tom, and a big thanks to all the participants. And have a good one.